Well, hello from the NASPA office in Washington, D.C. I hope everyone's enjoying some beautiful fall weather. We're having glorious weather here in D.C. My name is Jasmine Scott, and I'm Assistant Director of Member Engagement, working with student and new professional initiatives at NASPA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's question hour for NUFP Summer Internship host sites. Before we get started with the formal presentation, I did want to review some technical aspects of today's program to make sure we run as smooth as possible. So the first is that if you can at this time, minimize all other applications so that you can see and hear our presentation today. This webinar will last about 60 minutes and we'll save some time at the end to answer any of your questions. You should currently be able to hear my voice using your phone or computer speakers and view a PowerPoint slide on your computer screen. On your screen, you should see a gray menu, likely on your right-hand side. This menu will allow you to access the audio control panel, which defaults to being open when you log into GoToWebinar. If this is not open for you right now, you can click on the little plus sign next to the word audio to expand that menu. You're able to join via a telephone or your computer's mic and speakers. Feel free to switch in between both of them during the presentation if your current method stops working for you. To use your telephone, use the unique access code and PIN located on your menu. The code on the PowerPoint slide is just an example, so please don't try to type this in, it won't work for you. And we'll have all attendees muted throughout the session. Throughout the call, we'll also want to take any questions or comments that you have. So if you do have a question, you'll be able to send it to our presenters using the questions box located further down on your menu. Access this menu by clicking on the plus sign next to the word questions. I will share your questions with our presenters throughout the session, and then we'll save some time at the end to answer any of those. In case that menu starts to get in your way and you're multitasking, you can hide it by clicking on the orange arrow at the top of the vertical strip of icons that hangs out there on the side of your menu. And if you need it back open to ask a question or to give feedback, go ahead and click on it again and it will slide back out. That's all I have in terms of technical instructions. Feel free to send a question if you're having some issues and I'll help you out the best as I can. And now I would like to turn this over to Dr. Tiffany Davis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Tiffany Davis, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the NUFP board. And today we wanted to spend some time to talk about the summer internship opportunity through the NUFP program. As many of you know, the summer internship is one of 4 major components in the NUFP program. And this is an opportunity that as a NUFP board, we really see that we can enhance. Last year, we had 116 fellows complete applications to go through to apply for a summer internship. However, we only had 57 internship sites. And so this year, as a board, we really thought about what are some ways that we can strategically enhance the number of internship opportunities that we are able to offer for our fellows. And that's why this webinar was born. And so what we want to do today, some goals, is to, one, share some logistics and requirements of hosting a NUFP internship. We realize that not everyone understands exactly what goes into hosting an internship. And so we wanted to have an opportunity for some past supervisors and internship sites to give some insight on that, as well as to be able to also say, okay, you have an interest in doing the internship. What do I need to do? What are the tasks that the internship fellows will do? And so talking about the experience from both the professional learning and development aspect, but also from a social aspect as well. And then we also want to talk about how do you support multiple NUFP fellows during the summer in terms of connecting them with other interns on campus and making sure that it becomes a holistic experience where fellows are getting valuable experience and socialization into the field of higher education and student affairs. And so in order to give you the best insight and information, I've asked 3 former internship supervisors to join me on this call, and I'd like to have each of our panelists provide a brief introduction and share your name, your title, and your institutional affiliation. How are you connected to the NUFP program? And then what has been your experience with the NUFP Summer Internship Program? We'll start with Beth Conrad.
Hello and good afternoon. Greetings from the University at Albany in upstate New York. I'm from actually the Center for Leadership and Service, which is a new role for me on campus and a new office on the campus as well. While the university is not new to the NUFP program, I am new, and I'm new to the program, that is, having hosted an intern just this past summer for the first time. Amazing experience, loved her. and we still keep in touch. So really happy to be part of that program.
Thank you. Libby?
Howdy, y'all. Libby Daggers at Texas A&M University. I am an associate coordinator in the Office of New Student and Family Programs. So we're a pretty traditional orientation office. We've had a NUF intern over the summer for the past several summers, and I've served as a supervisor for that person over the last 3 years. My role specifically is parent and family programming. So our NUF intern works with the parent and family side of orientation.
Perfect. And last but not least, Shauna.
Hello, my name is Dr. Shauna Harris. I'm at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I serve as the Associate Director for Student Life and Leadership. And I have served as a former NUF intern supervisor at my previous institution over the last 3 years in the Department of Residential Life and then also in the Department of Student Engagement and Leadership.
Thank you. You'll also be hearing from both Jasmine and I as well throughout this webinar, as we are both alums of this wonderful program, of the NUF program, as well as having completed a summer internship. So we're your firsthand experience, even though it's been a couple of years, or at least a decade for one of us. I won't tell you which one. And so I will have Jasmine introduce herself again and tell about her NUF experience.
Well, hi again, everyone. Jasmine Scott, she, her pronouns, and I'm Assistant Director of Member Engagement at NASPA. And I work specifically with our student and new professional initiatives, and one of those initiatives is the NUF program. As Tiffany mentioned, I am a NUF alum, which is very exciting, and I actually did my NUF internship at Texas A&M with Libby. So really excited to have us kind of all back here today. And I also hosted intern here in the NASPA office throughout the summer. So it's a phenomenal experience. We're excited that you all are considering hosting, and please let us know what questions you have. Want to be as candid as possible about the process for you all.
Thank you. And again, I'm Tiffany Davis, and I am an alum of the MUF program, and I did my summer internship at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, the first HBCU that was granting college degrees. And I have also played a role in the hosting of NUF interns for the summer at my previous institution, North Carolina State University. So with that, I'd like to move on to the next part of our webinar, and the part that you all are most interested in. We have a set of pre-established questions that we'll talk for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we want to leave time for your questions. If you have a question during this webinar, please use your chat function to be able to type in those questions, and Jasmine will keep a running total of that, and then we will get to those at the end of the webinar. And so with that, I'd like to start our panel questions. And the first question is, how are your internships funded for your NUF interns?
Well, I guess I'll
anyone can start.
Okay. This is Shawn Harris, and so at my previous institution, I was in the Department of Residential Life, and that, with that being an auxiliary, we were able to allocate funds for our NUF interns, so it wasn't that I had to go and advocate for funds in that capacity, but so we had money that was allocated for those particular interns. In the next position that I had in student engagement and leadership, we did have to go and request funds for having the intern, and so we still had a collaboration with Department of Residential Life, but then also any additional funds that we needed that Department of Residential Life could not meet, we then asked for those funds from the Student Affairs office.
I'll chime in now. Beth from UAlbany. We're very fortunate that our Vice President's office in Student Affairs funds the program for us. Last year, we had about 7 interns, and they've been funding this program for a number of years now. I'll go into some specifics, even $1,500 stipend, $600 for meals, and a $300 travel stipend as well. And again, we're just very fortunate that there's an institutional commitment to the program through our Student Affairs Division.
Yeah, we're in a very same position. Our intern, the meals, stipend, parking, housing has all been covered by our Vice President of Student Affairs office within our Division of Student Affairs. We also have a NUF program through our multicultural office that works with our fellows year-round throughout that process. So we have really great institutional support. So we haven't had to do a ton of advocating. Luckily, we've already seen the value in that, but we have found our Division of Student Affairs to be our best supporters of our NUF interns.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that, one, institutional commitment is super important to this process. And so if you're at a campus already that has a kind of culture around NUF, it might be appropriate to ask the other mentors, or even to think about your vice president in terms of, would there be some willingness to this? What I heard from Dr. Harris was that some institutions are having to advocate and to request funding. And so Dr. Harris, can you tell us more about the process by which you use to request and advocate for this funding?
Sure. So the first time we went about exploring having the NUF's intern on our campus, I did write a proposal to the Director of Residential Life at the time. And so some of the components of that proposal included what was the NUF program, how long the program had been in existence, the timeline of, what we need to do to start to finish, from the selections process, hiring, until the intern left, the budgetary matters. And so I wanted to build in information that included the stipend, anything that we needed for meals, parking. We were fortunate enough with being in housing, we did not have to allocate funds for housing. We just took a room offline and had the students stay there, in addition to any other miscellaneous items that we would need as far as supplies. So I put that into the budget. And then I also included a piece of how this was going to benefit our institution by hosting a NUF intern, in addition to what this experience was going to mean for the NUF students who were coming to our campus, because a lot of those students, they are exploring other opportunities, so they don't want to stay at their home institution. And so we wanted to make sure that that experience was going to be meaningful for those who are coming a lot of times from across the nation to our campus. And so I packaged that up, and I sent that to our Director of Residential Life, as well as the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, to advocate for having this particular program.
Thank you so much. I think another piece of that, and this is Tiffany, is when you're thinking about advocating for NUF alum. I know it when I was at NC State, I knew that in the academic realm, as a faculty member, I did not have a budget. And so I had to think about who were the collaborators on campus that may have a little bit of a budget to be able to give to this situation, as well as to think about where our needs in the summertime. And so I reached out to professionals in housing and residence life, because again, housing is key. And so started asking them about funds, but then also thinking about a grad program. I was in a grad program, and so because Dr. Harris was in the same region, she had her students to me, so I also was able to offer an experience for the students by saying, hey, you bring them down to campus, I'll sponsor them with a lunch, a free lunch, a campus tour. And that was done by my VPSA, because I think what Dr. Harris said is that what's in it for me? And so if you have a grad program, that's an excellent opportunity. If you are looking at new professionals and you hire people without master's degrees, that's another opportunity. And so I think really asking and selling that experience is key. Also asking who are NUF alums on your campus, because there might be some NUF alums who can help advocate for you in requesting the funding. But it seems like this budget and a proposal can really be helpful. So thank you. And we talked about a little bit of, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say absolutely, because when I transitioned over to another department, we didn't have those funds there for the NUF program, to have the internship there. And so that's when I started collaborating back with Department of Residential Life, because I knew from my previous work with that department, we were able to allocate some additional funds there. And so I think that collaborative piece on campus definitely is crucial, but then that budget proposal and just the total package of what the experience is going to bring to the campus and for the students is helpful.
Thank you. I think one more thing that I'd like to add is that I know in our having conversations before, we also talked about thinking about if you already have funds allocated towards student workers or interns during the summer and how that might be redirected to a NUF intern. And so that might be another place for you to look in your budget as well as in other folks' budget, because I know at other institutions, what we've done is we've had 2 or 3 offices share an intern for the summer because they each put in a little pot of money that they had reserved for a student worker to be able to work. Any other thoughts around advocating for the position and requesting funding from our panelists? I don't see head moving, but okay. So let's go to the next question of, so you advocated, you got these students, what are you having them do? What are types of projects and experiences that you're giving to the interns? And this is popcorn style, so whoever would like to start first.
I can go ahead and start. So like I said, my office is a typical orientation office, so we are super busy in the summer. And so our interns have been really instrumental in making everything happen, which sometimes is like, hello, welcome, orientation starts tomorrow, so I hope you're ready. But we have them help with our check-in process for all of our family members and guests that are accompanying our students to orientation. They work our help desk. And so we do a lot of on-the-job training with them. We always partner them with a professional staff member the first few shifts so they can kind of get acclimated, because people are asking them for directions on a campus they've been at for, a week maybe. And so we do a lot to try to prepare them to be able to answer those questions. And then outside of the typical orientation roles, we have some in-office projects that we have them work on. I feel like no matter what year it is, there's always some sort of benchmarking project of something that we're working on. I think that's been helpful for some of our interns to kind of get some global perspective of other campuses as well. And then we do all of our publications in-house. And so we have our interns work on one of our publications. And I think that's some of the feedback that I've gotten back from our previous interns, is that they've really appreciated that opportunity to work on a publication, to learn some skills in InDesign or Photoshop that they might not have otherwise gotten, that they feel like they walk away from with a tangible skill that they can talk about that they may not have gotten other places. So kind of in a nutshell, that's kind of the typical roles that we have our NUF interns playing.
Okay, I'll go next. We were also in the middle of orientation at UAlbany, so that provided a lot of opportunity for our intern to chat with prospective students. She did a lot of tabling for us, speaking to parents and students. And we also had UAlbany students working in the office during the summer, so she was able to get to know them, and they became very friendly. So she kind of became a UAlbany student almost over the summer. But beyond that, because the office was new, she was really with us kind of at the ground level in kind of shaping the nature of the office, the future of the office. And she wrote a grant proposal for us that was submitted to Campus Compact. She created an assessment for us. I was very impressed by her skill at doing that. And we were able even to send her to meetings, bring her to meetings. Also, we had a civic engagement coalition that was formed, and so she tagged along to those meetings and met a number of folks on campus. So I think she got some pretty good exposure in the end.
And I'll speak from the 2 different offices. And so the interns that worked in the Department of Residential Life, they primarily assisted with our summer conference check-ins and checkout process. They helped with summer orientation as well, because that was a part of our summer orientation process. They helped do some assessment and benchmarking for NCHO, which was our State Housing Officers Conference. And so our director at the time was the president, and he gave them special projects to do for NCHO, in addition to helping with our summer housing assignments. And so they were able to really get into the inner workings of what we do on a day-to-day basis throughout the summer for housing. When I was in student engagement and leadership, that particular student helped to write the curriculum for our Emerging Leaders program, helped with student activities, and so during the summer we would coordinate programs for our students who were living on campus, and so they worked with our student activities coordinator to help facilitate some of those programs, and then also helped with revamping our student organization's registration process.
I can also quickly jump in. Oh, sorry, Tiffany. This is Jasmine.
Sure.
So,
oh, no.
Our intern works in the NUFP office, which is a little bit different from working on a campus, but I think some lessons that we've learned is that there's a balance between kind of summer initiatives that they can work on, so doing something like a publication that Libby mentioned versus a long-term initiative that maybe they can lay the foundation for, but they're not going to be able to see through. So we had our intern work on things like a report summing up our end-of-the-year evaluation for NUFP, and then they also laid the groundwork for us for careers and student affairs work. So we try to do a balance of those different types of things for our students.
Thank you so much. And I think it's very important to note here is that sometimes we like to think that the NUFP interns, and even just interns in general, they have to work in residence life. And that's why we were very intentional about getting folks in different functional areas that are using interns in creative and positive and impactful ways to really give them a well-rounded experience across functional areas. So I appreciate all of you sharing that information. So you have them doing these tasks, but how did you assist in their professional learning and development beyond the specific tasks that you're requiring them to do in their job description? Let's start with Dr. Harris.
I created a curriculum for our summer intern, and I created some outcomes. And so I wanted to be very specific about what they were going to learn. I wanted this to be a meaningful experience for them. And so some of the professional opportunities included them setting up meetings with, and some of these meetings were already prearranged, but then if there were other meetings, once they got there, they wanted to include, I did that. But they had the opportunity to meet with other campus partners, because what NUFP the program is for our students to learn more about what we do in the profession. And so they had the opportunity to meet with, career services, our admissions office, other units within the Department of Residential Life. And so whether it was their assistant directors or directors, they had the opportunity to meet with them and sometimes often shadow them as well, just to kind of see what they did on a day-to-day basis. I did want them to meet with our chief student affairs officers, and so they had the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with them. We would have leadership workshops, and so I wanted to keep current on what was going on in higher education. So oftentimes we would have a lunch and learn where we would talk about what those articles would mean, and whether it was one of our students who was a NUFP intern, or if I was able to have two students, I still included some of our orientation leaders or maybe our summer conference host to be a part of that conversation. So it just wasn't me talking to the student about this particular article. And then I also incorporated campus site visits. And so within the Raleigh-Durham area, I coordinated with a respective person on another campus, whether it was someone in housing or someone in orientation, just so they can come and do a tour of that campus, also talk to their chief student affairs officer, as well as meet some of the other students. And if there was a grad program on that campus, incorporating that as well. And so we did have an opportunity to take some students to several of our campuses throughout the summers, just so they could see different organizational structures and institutional types, really kind of, see what the differences were from our institution versus those other institutions. And let's see, what else did they do? I think that was about the culmination of everything for the summer.
Thank you.
I can go next. Yeah, I can go. We do really similarly. So we ask our interns within the first couple weeks who are folks that they're interested in meeting with, and that doesn't necessarily mean name them by name, but functional areas they might be interested in. If they aren't someone who is immediately going into grad school, if they're looking for grad programs, we ask them what grad programs they might be interested in so that we can connect them with professionals across our campus and help them really build their network. So that's been one of the things I know we've gotten really positive feedback on, is that they really enjoy the opportunity to build their network and meet other people on our campus and hear about their experiences. So that is something that we have always done. And I try to be really intentional about what I know about our intern and they may not identify a person or area that they want to meet with, but sometimes I encourage them, like, I'm just gonna get coffee with this person, and you might learn something, and kind of hook them up with some folks to really build their network as well. Our office always has at least one other intern. We typically have a NOTA intern. Sometimes we have two, or a combination of graduate assistants that have stuck around or whatnot. So we also give them opportunities to build their network within other interns and meet others in that way. We've done site visits kind of sporadically. We do try to look at other orientation programs when we have the opportunity. So we didn't do this past summer, but we did 2 summers ago. We went to Sam Houston State and brought our interns with us. For us, we really treat our interns as if they are part of our professional staff. So we know they're with us for a short time, but they come to our Department of Student Life meetings and retreats. If we're doing any sort of training, like one time our QPR training fell over the summer, we still had our interns go through QPR training, knowing that that was still a good skill for them to get, even though they were only with us for a short time. So any of the professional development that's offered throughout our campus, we try to get our interns to take advantage of those while they're here.
Nice. At UAlbany, we started with an old-fashioned approach by sharing books and resources in terms of leadership theories or other competency models and things like that. Lots of conversations, certainly talking about our career paths, sharing the strategic plan for the division or for our center. But all of the interns were invited to site visits, like the other campuses. So 3 or 4 campuses in the area, speakers. It was kind of an every Wednesday thing where there'd be some kind of professional development afternoon planned. Sometimes it was all day on Wednesdays. And we kind of lucked out at the end of, or mid-July rather, we were hosting a common purpose global leader experience in New York City, where we sent a number of UAlbany students to New York for that experience, and we were able to send our intern as well. So she had a very formal professional development experience in New York with students from other SUNY campuses. So if we can get that to happen again, I think that would be great. She loved it, and that expanded her network as well.
Thank you so much. So what I'm hearing is that it really is important for us to think about having a holistic experience for these students. And so it's not just what they're doing during the job description, but really thinking about what else will contribute to their learning and development while they're there. As an intern, I know that my internship site took me as well to the Region 1 conference for NASPA was in the summer, and so they had an all-expense paid trip for me and the other interns that they had on campus in other capacities to attend this conference. And so that's certainly a great use of their time. So we talked about the profession, but we also realized that a lot of these fellows may be moving to or are moving to areas that they're not familiar with. And so they may be coming out of state, out of city, lack of family and friends. So what are some of the ways that you all have attended to their social experience and kind of their personal acclimation to your campuses?
I can start. So we're orientation people. I'm going to preface with that. So we like icebreakers and warm fuzzies. And so we do care packages. So after we've selected our interns and we feel like we've been communicating with them a lot, we didn't want it to just drop off before they show up for the summer. So we send 3 care packages. So the first one is really like institution and location focused. So we include information from our visitor center, both in town and on campus, and maps and all the information we can about especially traditions and understanding the traditions at Texas A&M and understanding our campus and understanding more about the Bryan College Station area. And then the second one is a lot about our office, about our orientation program, and more about the position specifically. So we have all of our office staff and our orientation leaders, we make little about me sheets, and we have our interns make those as well and send those, as well as more like our orientation handbook and materials that our folks would be getting at orientation so they can kind of study up about the position. And the final one is generally just like get excited. We make a mix CD, although we've upgraded to a Spotify playlist the last few years. Everyone submits a couple songs. We make sure that when the interns arrive, we ask them before they come their t-shirt size and their favorite snacks. And we have all of those things waiting for them in their apartment when they arrive. So just things so they feel like they're not being hired and then getting nothing until they show up. It's also been really helpful for us to give them some kind of study materials to get them prepared, because we know that we're off to a really quick start once they come.
We definitely do similar things with care packages and having like a welcome banner for our students once they arrive. One of the things that I think was unique for the experience for our students is that we were able to connect them with other NUF students who were in the area, and so we did a triangle meetup. So if there were students at NC State or Chapel Hill, we would come together and have those students to meet other NUF students in the area. And then we would also take them on just tours of the area. I mean, it's one thing to give them a packet and say, here's all the fun things to do in the triangle area. We wanted to make sure they knew where grocery stores were and where the malls were, and, just finding out what the students like to do, and made sure that we incorporated those things. And oftentimes we would talk to our current students as well to say, what are some of the things that our current students like to do that, you can, take our NUF interns with you throughout the summer. And so that was a helpful thing to have, is having people who are already on campus who were very familiar with the area as well, to have that student perspective. And so we would, very first 2 days that they were there, we were really getting them acclimated to campus and to the community, so they felt safe, they felt welcome. And then if the timing worked out, and that's one thing that I'll talk about later, if the timing works where they're starting when your student employees are starting, then if you're having a welcome back kickoff or kickoff to the summer, it was helpful to include them as a part of that, whether it was a cookout or just some type of social, if the timing worked.
Yeah. So similar to the other campuses, we did the gift basket when our intern moved in, and all of our interns were housed together in one complex. And they had welcome breakfast, and they had the site visits and the Wednesday programming, so they were able to be with each other quite a bit. And then because we had student staff working in the office, our intern had a kind of a second group that became part of her network. And there were social outings that they organized, within themselves. They all had a bus pass tied to their UAlbany ID card, so they could take the bus system as far as the bus system went to explore the area a little bit and find their way to shopping, grocery stores, etc.
I think one thing to add that I forgot is that being really upfront when you're in the interview process about what how your campus is situated. So for us, we don't have a ton of public transportation. And so while we certainly can make it work for interns if they don't have a car, we've gotten feedback that our interns that have cars have felt more comfortable. Also, like, we're pretty close to Houston and Austin, and so they've been able to travel more and explore more. And so we didn't used to mention that, but have added it to our interview process of just hey, it's not a hindrance if you don't have a car. That's not part of our selection criteria, but you may find it helpful if you are able to bring a car to do so. And just so when interns are making a decision, they have all of that information and can find out what's the best fit for them. So I think being upfront and honest about what your area looks like can be helpful.
Thank you so much, Libby. So I think you all have given us great amounts of information to think about, as everyone on the call and everyone who will listen to this recording will submit an application to host an intern. But before we have Jasmine tell us about the logistics of submitting that application and we take questions, I'd like for each of you to share maybe your top lessons learned that you'd like to share with potential internship sites. and we'll go in alphabetical order. So Beth, Livy,
That's
and then
me.
Sally.
Okay. I'm going to give you two lessons. One is that these interns will impress you. So they are very capable, and I wasn't really certain of their skill sets, and they're just very impressive students. So be prepared for that. But I would also add that you know, while it's handy to have an intern, an office might be looking for that intern to complete a project or do something that the office has never had time to do, so we'll get an intern and they can just do it for us. And while that might be true, there's also the obligation that the student is really in this experience, in this program to learn, and so each campus has a responsibility to mentor and develop that intern, and not to look at the intern as just labor, I suppose. They will impress you and they will do great work, but there's a responsibility to develop them and show them the ropes and connect them to our industry, to our field.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what Beth said. I think one of the lessons that we've learned is before interns arrive, before you're posting the position description, to really be thoughtful in the projects that you want them to complete and kind of rank them. So like, what are the projects you absolutely like need to get done, want to get done? What are ones that if an intern could complete them, it would be great, but if it didn't happen, it wouldn't hurt your office in any way, just because I think all of them have a different level or pace that they work at. And so we've had interns that like have completed the whole list of projects we've had for the whole summer in the first 2 weeks, and then we're left like, oh, what do we have them do next? So to kind of err on the side of having a really long list of things they can do and let them kind of pick and choose and work through what is your office's priority, what skills they want to get, to really like round out that experience. And then also what Beth said, I think some of the NUFP interns that I've worked with, I've had the most rich conversations with them about their experiences and just talking about topics of social justice and all of these things that I don't necessarily get to have on an everyday basis with the other students that I interact with. So also just taking that time to learn from your interns and hear their experiences and their perspectives, I think has really benefited me as a professional as well.
I definitely would echo much of what was said. I think it's important if you are in an area where you're able to take students to other sites, other campuses in the area, do site visits, please make sure that you are communicating with those other campuses a month or two in advance. It is the summer. And so oftentimes, key people that you might want your students to meet with may be on vacation. If you're wanting them to meet with orientation, making sure you're mindful of that schedule. If it's a grad prep program that you want students to maybe connect with students and faculty, what does that look like? Are there students on campus? So being mindful of that and communicating and creating that timeline and being very specific about when you would want your students to come. I think for me it was helpful when I was communicating with my area campuses is I would provide at least 3 dates for them to choose from. And so based off of those dates that I gave them, if there was a date that worked, then we could create that day around their schedule. And so making sure you provide those options and making sure that it's a meaningful experience. You want to talk to your students way beforehand so you can create the best experience possible. While you may have those tasks that you want them to do, for us, it was just helpful to have a very intentional conversation about what is it that you want to gain, who do you want to meet, and how can we make this the best experience possible. So when you leave our institution, you have great things to say about our institution. And I always like to give an assessment, like a evaluation tool at the end, just so we know what we're doing, if we're doing something that we don't need to be doing anymore, or what are we doing well, so we can prepare for the next summer.
Thank you so much, ladies. that was definitely some great lessons that you've all learned throughout the time, and I think it'll be helpful for those of the new interns supervisors who are planning. So now I'll ask Jasmine if you can talk about what's the process of hosting a NUFP intern. That would be awesome.
Sure thing. So as I go through this section, I would invite anyone who is listening in to share any questions you may have in the questions panel. That way we can get to them after this section. So in terms of the process, right now it's open for any internship host site to submit their internship posting to our website. And those are all due by January 5th. So what the process looks like is you'll submit your description, what your benefits package is going to look like, any projects you want to have your intern work on during the summer. And then I go through and read them, make sure that they make sense, look good, and approve them all. That way they get populated into the site so then students can go in and actually make preferences. So our students right now are also simultaneously going in and answering kind of like a statement of purpose, kind of putting together their applications so that when you get individuals who have ranked your institution, you kind of have information about them to then decide who you want to interview. So our students from January 8th through the 15th will have time to go in, they rank their top 5 schools, and then on the 17th you'll receive a full list of applicants from me as well as their rankings. I will say that some schools get tons of people who rank them 1 through 5. Some schools won't. And just because a student didn't mark you 1 through 5 doesn't mean they're not a great applicant. When you have 57 host sites, there are still 57 phenomenal opportunities. You just have to rank 5 of them. So if you want to expand your pool, I would encourage you to go into students who haven't necessarily ranked you in the top 5. And then in January, we start our internship interview. So the 22nd is kind of the first day that you can reach out to individuals to start the interview process. From there in February, you can start making your offers to any candidates on February 21st. So kind of similar to how grad schools do their offer date in a program where all the assistant providers offer on one day. We do the same thing here, and that's really so we're not undermining any of our partners. So if Beth were to offer her intern something on February 1, but I haven't even completed my first round interviews then, that's kind of putting me at an unfair advantage. So we want to make sure that we're all on kind of a level playing field as much as we can be to make sure we're not also putting students in compromising positions about what that process looks like. And then March 9th is kind of our initial deadline to notify NASPA of our intern placement. And the reason that I'll kind of follow up with every school and say, hey, where are you in your process? What can I do to help? Have you picked someone? Is because we will have people who won't get a match during this initial process. So we'll have some schools who maybe interviewed great candidates, but the candidates got multiple offers, or the candidate realizes, hey, I actually can't do this internship. I need to take a summer class and I have to be at my home campus. Or, hey, something with my family came up, so I'm removing myself completely from the process. We'll go through and send all of these schools that don't have placements, all the interns who haven't also been placed, so you can kind of continue that matching process, and we'll do the best that we can to help you all through that. In April, I recommend finalizing your details of the internship with your selected intern. So finalizing their housing, their travel, their meals, how are they getting to you? Will they have what they need when they actually arrive? Maybe a great time is in that first care package that Libby and Shauna mentioned. And then May through July is typically the duration of the internship, but those dates will vary, and you can specify that in your description. Again, most of our internships are 6 to 8 weeks, but that will vary, also depending on kind of what's going on your campus or in your organization. So, for us at NASPA, we have our Leadership Institute for our students 2 weeks in the summer. So we wanted to plan around that so our student could also attend, but then also attend offsite conferences we were having and be able to staff that as a project they're doing. So May through July, some go to the beginning of August, but it gets kind of difficult if the student's going into a grad program or has to get back to campus for like an RA training or something. Some things to note about the selection process is that more detailed descriptions, so ones that outline job duties, projects, are generally ranked higher by students. So if you know what you're going to give the student, they can better assess if they want to actually do that. Some students, this will be the first time they've ever considered doing an internship, so they have no idea what that product's going to look like. This may be their kind of first official paid job. They have no idea what your campus office needs because they haven't worked in your campus yet. So the more you can provide them upfront makes it easier for them to want to rank you and want to go to you. Most institutions will do 2 interview rounds, so maybe an initial phone interview round and then a video chat before offering to the fellow on that February 21st date. The NASPA office, we do a phone interview for every single person who ranks us because we think it's good professional development. You don't have to do that. If you want to and you have the capacity, you're more than welcome to. I want to make sure we're getting good candidates and that we're also viewing this as professional development for them as well. Help clarify the benefits and full package for fellows so they can make informed decisions about their placement. So we do have some students who will get offered an internship and then realize, hey, I'm not actually going to be able to pay to get myself there. What can we do next? We don't have the capacity right now to help pay for travel stipends to get students to campuses, so it's important that you're kind of upfront with them about what that will be ahead of time. So I know that for our intern, we'll pay them their stipend, then we also give them up to, I think, $500 that they can use to travel, that's reimbursed. So if we can help clarify that, that may help them see if it's feasible for them to actually travel and be in DC for 6 to 8 weeks over the summer. And the last thing I would say is just utilize NASPA as a resource throughout the process. We want this to be a successful partnership. We appreciate that you all take students onto your campus, and it's good for me to hear that the students are coming onto your campuses and being phenomenal. I appreciate that, Beth, a lot. But we also know that some students maybe aren't going to be the most polished their first day of work because this is their first time doing it. So it's really important to give them good onboarding when they first come. That way they can do phenomenal work for you throughout the summer. It's important to be candid about what they're going to get in terms of supervision, especially if they're going to have multiple supervisors throughout the summer, or they're going to have multiple interns in different roles. And then it's also important just to know that good supervision takes time. And in many ways, this internship is kind of you're interviewing with that student to potentially want to work there one day. So I know from my internship at Texas A&M, I'd have no hesitation working at the institution because Libby and that crew did a phenomenal job of welcoming me in, treating me like a professional, really gave me a phenomenal experience. And that's what we want, right? We want these students to either come to your school for grad school, to work for you, and really just to put your name out there to other people that they'll interact with. So those are things that I would say are important in the selection process. So I think with that, we can take any questions. I don't see any in the questions tab right now, but we'll let that populate for a moment. Libby, did you have another piece of advice you wanted to offer?
I did, and Jasmine will know exactly what I'm talking about. But now in the days of social media, when we make our offers, we have asked our interns that we offer to not to post on social media that they have an offer until they have officially accepted it and we have done all the hiring paperwork for them. I know that there's enough Facebook groups and things, and so we've had instances where students have posted that they got an offer for our institution before we've had the opportunity to tell other candidates that they were not selected. So we have found that to be really helpful. So just a tip when you make your offers to maybe ask your candidates not to mention anything until it's completely and official and you've had the opportunity to tell everybody else.
Yeah, that's great, Libby. And we've started to, on our end, put that into the information we give to fellows ahead of time of like, hey, offer date's coming up. Here's how you should approach this. Please do not post until the paperwork has been signed. So if you all as providers could give double affirmation, that just helps that process be so much smoother for everyone involved. That's a great point. Thanks, Libby.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have noticed and around, we're really trying to think about the summer internship experience and how we can provide information and development for both supervisors and the internship sites as well as the fellows. And so I do want to say that on behalf of the NUFP board, one of the things that we will also do is that while we have this webinar, it's great for those of you that are interested in learning more about how to host an intern, but we also want to provide an opportunity after you've selected your intern, because now you have a real situation, you have a real person coming in, and we want to be sure to be able to offer any support and questions, because some people are like, well, I don't really have questions until it's happening. So we definitely understand that. So for those of you that already know that you will be hosting someone in the this coming summer, know that in like March, around March 8th, not March, Jasmine's going to freak out around March because that's annual conference. So April, we will be hosting a webinar for those supervisors so that we can talk about, you know, what are some good tips around supervision, around like finalizing, around onboarding, and around how can you assess the experience from your campus perspective, because as NUFP, we provide evaluation of all of our fellows, but something that can also help your campus to learn more about the NUFP experience while they're there. And we're also looking into possibly offering mock interviews for fellows going into these interviews, realizing that for some of them, it's the first time that they've done a Skype interview or a Google Hangout interview or even a phone interview to this magnitude within the field. And we want to be sure to be able to equip them with the skills to be successful and to know that they're making their best impressions as well. And so that'll be something that we're going to pilot this year in January, to be able to offer an opportunity if students want to do a kind of a practice interview, that they will be able to do that with one of the NUFP board members or volunteers. And so those are just some of the things that we're really committed to strengthening the NUFP summer internship program. And so do we have any questions yet, Jasmine, or no?
We do not.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us in today's webinar. I definitely want to take an opportunity to thank Beth and Libby and Shauna for joining us and being such great champions of the NUFP program. We hope that you are even more interested and committed to hosting a NUFP student this summer on your campus. If you have any questions, you will receive this presentation, and our emails are included there if you have specific questions for any of us individually. But please continue the conversation. Please share this presentation with those on your campus that you might think that it would be helpful to advocate for having a NUFP student on your campus. And does anyone else have any final thoughts before Jasmine closes this out?
Very excited about the mock interviews. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. All right. Jasmine, thank you all for joining, and I'll turn it back over to Jasmine.
All right, yeah, thank you again to our presenters and for Tiffany for organizing this. I'll just reiterate kind of what our panelists have said. This is a phenomenal opportunity for our students. They're very excited to come to your campus to do this work, and we really appreciate the commitment you all are making to furthering the work of the NUFP program, so thank you for that. We'll send out this recording via email to everyone who's registered and also put it on our website. And just remember, the date that you want to know is January 5th is the last day to put in any applications to host a summer intern. So thank you all.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.